Hello and welcome to Beacon Hill Update. I'm your host this season, Jody Garson. Thank you to Millis Community Media for working to provide us in Millis with this opportunity to hear from our representatives each quarter. Today's update is with Representative Marcus Vaughn. Welcome.
Thank you, Jody.
He represents Precinct 1 in Millis of the Massachusetts House of Representatives as part of the 9th Norfolk District. This district consists of the towns of Precincts 3 and 4 in the town of Medfield, Precinct 1 in the town of Millis, Norfolk and Plainville, Precinct 5 of the town of Walpole, and the town of Rentham, all of which are in Norfolk County. Representative Vaughn has been our representative since 2023, and he lives in Rentham. Today's program, which is taped on November 3rd, 2025, will focus on updates on education funding from the state, funding for programs in Massachusetts that have been impacted by federal funding cuts, such as health insurance and food assistance, as well as any potential relief for utility ratepayers, especially gas and electricity as we head into colder months. Finally, we'll hear from Representative Vaughn about the legislation he is currently working on and any other important updates in the Massachusetts House of Representatives. Representative Vaughn, let's start with any updates on education funding. While there is close to 7% increase in Chapter 70 funds in the fiscal year 26 budget, Millis has typically not received any increases in state aid, while our mandated costs keep rising. What can we expect to see from the legislature in the coming months in education funding?
Yeah, so we worked really hard this session. House Ways and Means, we had our listening session throughout the entire state, and this was top of mind on everyone's radar. Educators, administrators, even students. We had one of our listening sessions at UMass Amherst, where a lot of students came out, advocating for increased funding, Chapter 70. We've worked really hard to, get to a point, even last session, increasing the per pupil reimbursement to $104. And this session, we increased that to $150. So it's a step in the right direction. Obviously, there's still a major gap in a lot of our municipalities. But I think overall here in 9th Norfolk, we do a really good job as far as budgeting, even though, we have escalating rises in cost, in educational, needs, especially with special education, transportation costs, out-of-district costs. I'd like to, and I've advocated for this with a few of my colleagues, and we have a couple bills set forth to reimagine that formula, because it is a broken system. And I think towns like Millis, like the rest of my towns that I serve, we really do a pretty good job as far as managing our finances, and we kind of get the short end of the stick with tax dollars coming back to our district when a lot of the monies are going towards a lot of the gateway cities. Yep. Who unfortunately don't do the best of jobs managing the funds that are coming in. So
yeah, have we seen any progress on the foundation budget study?
Not yet. Yeah, it's still being evaluated, and the committee is still trying to figure out a path forward. But we'll see what comes of it, and try to keep the district updated on that.
That would be great.
Yeah.
And what about changes to the special education circuit breaker formula?
So again, that's another one. These formulas, it's broken. It needs to be reimagined. We need to take a look at it. Way above my pay scale, but I know it's a broken system. I've heard from many stakeholders, and hopefully will come that will come to fruition hopefully before the end of this session. So
that would be amazing. Have you made any progress on the bill that you're a co-sponsor on relative to the MSBA school funding increases for technical schools?
No, we have not. I mean, it's going through committee right now, being heard. We have a lot of sponsorships and a lot of advocates that support that measure. Myself with Representative Adam Scanlon, who's nearby in North Attleboro. He represents North Attleboro, parts of Mansfield. That is a major focus for us as we get into a situation where 50 years ago, a lot of our vocational schools were built on on the state's dime, basically, and
Right.
now it's being filtered down to the taxpayers, where a lot of these schools need to be rejuvenated and built back up, like we have at Tri-County, which is going to be a beautiful building,
Absolutely.
for our students in the district. But we need that same type of funding, as we've seen. Technical schools, these vocational technical schools, require a lot more than our traditional, middle and high schools with the type of equipment that goes into many of the shop areas. So the budget, the formula needs to be representative of that, more so than what we see in, traditional MSBA funding.
I think as here in Millis, as we went through that process with Tri-County, I was on the finance committee, and it was shocking to hear that the state basically treats an elementary school
Yes.
and a technical school the same in terms of funding with the
Yep.
MSBA,
Yes.
which, as we know,
Yes.
Tri-County needs
Yep.
far more equipment and,
The capital
and
expense is
technical.
much
Exactly.
higher. Yes, yes.
Well,
And that's where I tell my colleagues, and I do a lot of outreach. And today I was visiting an institution in Walpole for kids in need. But like those visits are really important, and for our legislature to get out into the community and see these schools and see what really is the need, because on the surface you don't realize it until you actually get down and dirty and hear from the people on the ground what's occurring and what their need is. So hopefully we can do more of that. My colleagues can do more of that, but we need our constituents to push them to do that, because I don't always see my colleagues getting out there and to do that work.
yeah, well, we certainly support that here in Millis.
Yes.
We love seeing you again.
Yeah.
You come around.
Yeah.
Now let's discuss the question that's on everyone's mind as the weather gets colder
Yes.
each day, the cost of gas and electricity.
Yes.
The governor keeps promising to do everything she can to drive down energy costs, yet nothing seems to get done to significantly assist ratepayers. Our utility companies filed for winter season rates for natural gas that would increase the monthly bills in our area to as much as 17% for Eversource. And the Department of Public Utilities has yet to rule on that request, or at least as of right now. Coming into this taping, you never know what the day will bring. Massachusetts residents also pay the third highest rates in electricity in the nation. What is the legislature doing to provide some relief to ratepayers?
Yeah, so one thing that we've looked at is, obviously, these major companies, Eversource, National Grid, whoever it may be, they have an obligation to upgrade the system as well. But with that, lowers the cost of managing that system. So, even though they want to have an increase, 17% or whatnot, there is a back end savings on their end, and those savings need to be, given back to the ratepayers as they move along. And I think that's where we're at right now. I think escalating costs again, as far as labor and the materials that are being used for pipes and whatnot in these gas lines, I understand that, but at a certain point, how much is too much? And people are struggling. There's lots of constituents that call our office that are really struggling with these increases. Every 6 to 9 months. And really hope Governor has expressed her frustration. The administration has expressed their frustration with the increase in these costs. But we were also in a situation where I think these costs could have been lowered. Pipelines could have been brought in to help lower, the cost of our energy. Now I think there's a little bit more, open-mindedness to maybe bring down some of that red tape. I hope we can get to a point where, the legislature understands this. I know for a fact, constituents all across the Commonwealth are contacting their legislators. So this is, something that we need to fix, before we get to a point where, people are in dire need. And especially in the winter months, we certainly don't want that.
Absolutely. We've also had some questions about how Massachusetts will be stepping up to help food assistance and nutrition programs in the face of federal funding cuts. Over 1 million Massachusetts residents rely on SNAP assistance,
Yes.
the majority of whom are children, elderly, or disabled. What are we likely to see regarding government assistance in Massachusetts in the coming months for our neediest neighbors, even just filling that 50% SNAP gap.
Yeah, and I think, we talked a little bit about this last week while we were in session. The governor did in her recent, press brief, but I think it was about $220 million or so that we would need to fill a month. At the end of the day, yes, we have it. We have a rainy day fund of, I think, in surplus of $8 billion. So there's money available. We're not gonna get to a point where we're gonna allow people in need to go hungry. It's just whether where we fill those coffers, and hopefully our congressional delegates, our senators here in Massachusetts, along with senators and congressional colleagues across the country, hopefully they can work together very soon because we know there's a dire need across this nation, across the Commonwealth. So
yeah, and I know many folks think that hunger isn't necessarily out here in the suburbs, but we know it is.
It most certainly is.
And
yes.
Even Franklin made headlines by saying they
Yes.
served 217 patrons in
So
one day.
I've seen it myself. So I am on the board of incorporators for the YMCA, for the
Nice.
Hockomock YMCA. So just this morning I was in contact with the vice president to connect her with one of our small businesses that were willing to give out 100 turkeys,
Oh, nice.
15-pound turkeys, for people with food insecurity. So I see it a lot, and I visited their program across the 3 sites, and I know how many of the area families go for that extra support. So yeah, it's a misconception because we do live in a more affluent area in this part of the state, but there really is a true need for many of the families that live here.
And one thing that has been set up here in Massachusetts for folks who may have questions about where they can find assistance, fuel assistance, rent assistance, or food assistance, even mental health assistance, is they can dial 211. So that's a great resource that we have here in Massachusetts.
Yes.
For people who are looking for assistance. I always like to put out that plug.
Yeah.
It's
Or
a
you can
great
always
resource.
call my office and.
Oh yeah, we're going to give your information at the end too.
Yeah.
So the other hot button issue right now is health insurance. More than 337,000 residents will pay higher monthly premiums for health insurance coverage in the coming year due to the expiration of the federal ACA enhanced premium tax credits. That's on the federal level. In addition, our state's hospitals and clinics are experiencing significant demand for uncompensated care as they are accepting more patients on public payer insurance with growing expenses and increased use of services. What is the legislature working on to address healthcare costs here in Massachusetts and to ensure the stability of our healthcare system for all residents? As you know, we lost Norwood Hospital, which has been a huge loss in our area.
Yes.
And has pushed a lot of that care onto other surrounding hospital systems.
Yeah, the healthcare system is strained significantly, and obviously, like you said, Norwood, Stewart Health. Hopefully, we'll get to a point. Legislators in this area and our senators are working diligently to try to get that site back up and running, and try to have a hospital network that's willing to purchase the site and finish it. But that's a huge detriment to our area, to our immediate area, given that we only have Sturdy and Milford Hospital nearby, and the level of care we need it. We need that hospital back online. But I think as far as medication costs, healthcare costs, having bulk providers and breaking down the walls across state lines and being able to be more competitive, and that's where we're in it's not just Massachusetts, it's other states that are dealing with those lines of demarcation as far as having those conglomerates only be able to serve the people in those states. We need to break down those walls and let companies and people be able to shop for their healthcare services more abroad outside these the state confines that we have. So hopefully that'll help drive costs. It's not an easy fix, as you can
Definitely
see
not.
on the federal level as well. They've been dealing with this for quite some time, and it's even more difficult at the state level. But hopefully we'll have some guidance soon.
Thank you. How is Massachusetts working with other states in the region? We heard about the health network within the New England states.
Yep.
Has that been moving forward?
So again, that's preliminary discussions, but again, yes, with our New England states, and that's what the plan is, to have more of a unified effort across these providers to be able to provide more options for families and individuals to be able to sign on to a health program that benefits them or suits their particular needs.
Thanks. What is the biggest concern that you are hearing from constituents right now, and how is the legislature addressing that?
So obviously, top of mind, the benefits that are expiring right now because of the government shutdown. This is, I think, the second longest government shutdown, but we've never been in a situation like this where potential SNAP benefits are expiring. So everyone's just trying to get I've been on many conference calls the last week trying to facilitate and help certain programs and get them to a place where they're able to have that outreach to the constituents in the area and make sure that they're well cared for. But again, myself, my colleagues have sent letters in the last couple days to our congressional delegation, our senators, even the administration, asking them to consider a different path forward so that we can put this behind us and get back to a place where everyone is well cared for.
Nice. What are the additional areas that you are focused on Beacon Hill this legislative session?
Yeah, so I've been, obviously, budgetary concerns with all of our districts, and I think I got a report last week that, out of the 351 towns and cities, there was almost like a 70% of our towns and cities had budget shortfalls. That's not good. And a lot of those towns, they manage their money well, but just with escalating costs and the nature of the economy right now, enough of our tax dollars are not coming back. They're not being spread out equally. I've been one to show transparency, and I worked on a project this summer with one of my constituents who's actually from Millis, Anthony Coots, and put a task on him to basically create a framework behind an application that shows our budget cycle and our allocation of funds through all the cities and towns, and where the money is allocated for what projects and what earmarks. And there's a huge disparity between top echelon of our legislature versus newbies like myself, even though I'm in my third year. But it should not be that way. We're all paying taxes. There should be equity in fair distribution back to us and back to our communities, and that's not happening right now. So I know a lot of people have commented on it. I posted it, the last few weeks and months on my social media channels. But yeah, we're just trying to build upon that, and hopefully in the future, we'll get to a point where there is more equity as far as distribution of funds back into our communities. So.
Well, in the absence of an audit, I think we'll take whatever tools we can get to at least track some of that information.
Yes, yeah, and it is
it was
being
useful.
tracked. Yep. So.
What else? Are there any other additional areas that you're focused on right now?
Not in particular. Right now, obviously the government shutdown it's kind of taken everything else off the table. Kind of focusing on that right now. Mental health, concerns is still a major issue in our communities, especially with the youth. That's why today I was visiting the Little Wanderers in Walpole, in their institution, just to kind of get an idea of how they're helping our young minds here in the Commonwealth and abroad. So yeah, continue to do that work every day.
Nice.
Yes.
Thank you so much for taking the time
Thank
to
you.
talk with us in Millis and to share some of the legislative work that you're doing this session. If folks have additional questions for you, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Yeah, so through email, my email is just marcus.vaughn at malegislature.gov. mahouse.gov. Sorry, I always get that confused. And my legislative aide is Samantha Boudre, and she's actually a Millis resident, so you can call my office at any point, and you'll either get myself or Sam. Best phone number is 617-722-2480.
That's great. Thank you. And that's it for this Beacon Hill update with Representative Marcus Vaughn. Thank you so much for joining us, and please send any questions you may have to Millis Community Media. That is milliscommunitymedia@gmail.com. Thank you so much.